The virus and the measures that are being taken to contain it will surely weigh on economic activity, both here and abroad, for some time. We are beginning.
That was Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell explaining why he decided to cut interest rates in the wake of the coronavirus outbreak. The 0.5% drop in rates by the Fed is the largest cut since the 2008 financial crisis. After Powell's announcement, the stock market took a dip after a strong Monday. It finished the day nearly 800 points down. Powell has been a frequent target of President Trump. The president has criticized the Fed chairman repeatedly for not taking stronger action on interest rates. This morning, Mr. Trump said he was happy Powell made the adjustment, but attacked the Fed for not going further.
We should be paying less. So the Fed rate is too high. It's very simple. It's too high. It puts us at a competitive disadvantage, especially when it comes to exporting our product to other countries. The other countries love that. I don't like it at all. So I'd like to see our Fed lead instead of being led.
Daniel Lippman and Gabriel Rubin join us now from Washington. Daniel is a White House reporter for Politico, and Gabriel covers Congress for the Wall Street Journal. Welcome to you both. Daniel, does the White House believe the Fed cut will help boost the economy, and does it remain concerned with how it's reacting to the coronavirus?
Yeah, I think the White House, they know basic economics, that this is going to help the economy. But they're worried that it's not enough, as you played that Trump clip. But this is also fairly unprecedented because a president should not be intervening in terms of urging the Fed to cut rates. Remember, he has a re-election in November, and so he has been harping on the Fed way before this. And the Fed is supposed to be independent, but they're feeling pressure from Trump, and he is still not a happy camper about this.
Well, Gabriel, what about lawmakers? Are lawmakers worried about the interest rate cuts or the state of the economy because of the coronavirus?
I think there's definitely a lot of concern about the state of the economy as a result of the coronavirus. And the concerns from lawmakers are mostly about whether there will be a fiscal stimulus to accompany the rate cuts. Democrats in particular are always making the point that monetary policy is not enough and fiscal policy always needs to accompany it. So you saw someone like presidential candidate and Senator Elizabeth Warren come out with a plan for $400 billion in stimulus spending related to coronavirus to jumpstart the economy and to prevent us from going into a larger downturn. You saw Secretary of the Treasury Steven Mnuchin being questioned this morning by Democratic lawmakers about a possible stimulus package, and he voiced at least an openness to considering an infrastructure package, but we're very far away from any sort of negotiation between the administration and members of Congress on this to see if we would actually get some sort of stimulus package. But it is something to monitor down the road.
Well, Daniel, before leaving for a roundtable with health officials, the president was asked about potentially banning travel to areas afflicted by coronavirus. He said he wouldn't do so domestically, but that his administration is looking at blocking travel to countries such as Italy and South Korea. Let's listen to some of that.
We're being very stringent, but we're now looking at other countries that have been badly affected, and we're thinking about doing something we may have to do. We don't want to do that, but we're looking at other countries, and we're being very stringent. We're watching Italy very closely, South Korea very closely, even Japan very closely, and we'll make the right determination at the right time. We've cut it off, as you know, with numerous other countries.
So, Daniel, what are you hearing? Is banning travel something the White House is actively preparing for? And does this signal a larger plan to combat the coronavirus?
I think it's part of the mix. And if you have a country that's very poorly hit, then it's kind of an obvious thing to pursue. But there's an economic cost to that. Italy's, we trade a lot with Italy, and so a lot of, Italian Americans, they travel back and forth, and so we don't want to block U.S. citizens from coming back into the country, and so there are economic tolls to all of this. But I think the White House is trying to focus to try to minimize this as much as possible, especially in an election year where Trump does not want to, face a virus epidemic that spirals out of control.
Well, Gabriel, Vice President Pence is briefing lawmakers about the coronavirus. What do we know about those briefings and how lawmakers are reacting to the vice president's leadership of the task force?
Yeah, the vice president was up on Capitol Hill today meeting with a group of Republican senators and then a group of Democratic senators as well. And the main questions were all about testing. There has been a lot of news in the last couple of days about some of the failures of the Centers for Disease Control to come up with a diagnostic system, diagnostic kits that would go out to local health authorities to make sure that everyone who is possibly infected with coronavirus gets tested. There have been numerous delays on that. So the questions came from both Republicans and Democrats to Vice President Pence, who, by many accounts, gave forthright answers. But the senators from Washington in particular, Maria Cantwell and Patty Murray, really wanted, where there has been a cluster of the outbreak, really wanted to know when there is going to be a comprehensive testing regime in place, and those concerns were followed up on by Republicans as well. And Senator Debbie Stabenow of Michigan made the point that, the administration is scrambling. That was her word to describe the administration's response right now. And the questions really come down to, when is there going to be a comprehensive testing regime in place, and when can we expect more details about the administration's plans going forward?
Before we go, I want to turn to another topic, Daniel. The Afghanistan peace deal the U.S. signed with the Taliban over the weekend. Today, the president confirmed he spoke with the leader of the Taliban. Let's listen.
I did. I spoke to the leader of the Taliban today. We had a good conversation. We've agreed there's no violence. We don't want violence. We'll see what happens. They're dealing with Afghanistan, but we'll see what happens.
Daniel, how significant is it that an American president spoke with the Taliban leader, and what more do we know about this peace deal?
That's very significant. And it's kind of funny that he loves that phrase, we'll see what happens. That's his, kind of placeholder remark that he likes to use. But this has really never happened in the last few decades. What's interesting is that the U.S. in the 1980s, we worked with elements of the Taliban and al-Qaeda to fight against the Soviet Union. But now that we've been fighting against the Taliban for almost 20 years, there's a real hunger among Trump's voters to get out of Afghanistan. But I reported today that Lindsey Graham, a top Trump ally, he's been pressuring Trump and the White House to make sure there is a residual force, special operations, and also CIA paramilitary troopers who can stay in Afghanistan and be part of that solution to make sure that we don't face another terror threat from Afghanistan if the Taliban takes over.
All right, Daniel Lippman and Gabriel Rubin, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.